This tutorial is going to be about the process of making a bitmap. So if I jump over into Photoshop, I've got this image that I've pulled off the net. The first thing that you need to check is, if you go to image, is check the mode. You can only get to bitmap, you can see it's not highlighted here, from a grayscale image. So the first thing is, if it's a color image, even if it looks black and white, we have to change it to grayscale. Just go discard. It's going to discard the color information, make it black and white. Now with this, if we go image, mode, and we go to bitmap, you're going to end up with an input and an output. Your image needs to be, the output needs to be at least 3 times more than the input. What this is going to be doing is, it's going to talk about how fine the screen is. I've just bumped mine up to 800, so obviously it's a lot higher than just 3 times up. We want to make sure this is on halftone screening, and I'll go OK. Because I put 800 in, just in the end it's going to create a bigger, finer image. It's probably too much information, but we'll see the result. So once you get into the next screen, you have options here around round, diamond, ellipse, square, everything. I'm going to have it online. This is talking about the actual screen itself, what shape it's going to be. The angle, I'm going to have the lines angled at 45, so they're going to come diagonally through the image. The frequency is how fine those lines are going to be. The lower the number, the cruder or the wider the lines are going to be. The higher the number, the finer it gets. So I'm just going to have it on 15 at the moment, and I'll go OK. Now it looks pretty fine here at the moment, but I'm down at 6% of its size. So if I enlarge it up, Command plus, just bringing it up, you can see that it's changed this whole image to a screened one. So this is using our 45-degree line. The thing that's interesting here is, if we have a look at this image, this is the background, and the lines still go across the background. So at this stage, if I go Command Z, it jumps it right back to our grayscale image. So what it's telling me is that there's some kind of color in the background. Usually this technique works really well if the image is a bit more contrasty. So I'm going to go Command L, bring up the levels, and I'm going to bump the whites in. So this is going to clean up this image here. I can bring the contrast in, but I don't want it to kind of obliterate the side of the face too much. So I'll take it easy with the blacks, and it's the whites that I'll bump up to clear this background. Now if I go OK, and if I do the same process again, image, mode, bitmap, we've got our number there for the output, halftone screen, OK, the same credentials, we'll pop it in. Now if I come up here, Command plus, to enlarge up on the image, you can see what's happening. Those lines have disappeared because these areas have bleached out the pure white. So it's not going to draw anything unless there's some kind of tone to the image. So I'm going to, at this stage, I'm going to go File, Save As, I'll give it a name. I'm going to save it as a TIFF. Might come up as Photoshop, but change it to TIFF. Find the folder you're going to place it, and I'll save it. You get a whole lot of stuff here. There's never really anything that you need to change on this. So I'll go OK. The reason I'm showing you this is one of the qualities of a bitmap that might be useful for other work you're doing in other classes is, if I jump to Illustrator, I come to this page and I place this image, and I'll place it in here. because it's a bitmap, I can go to the color. It's one of the few images, if the only one, where you can go to the color and you can color the image, and it's going to color the image, but it's also going to keep the transparency. So if I show you by grabbing a different colored square, object, arrange, send it to the back, that image is transparent. Pretty gaudy colors that I've chosen, but that transparency works really well. And it also means that if you've got something already in Illustrator, I'm just going to move this image a little bit. So if you're working on a design and you've got type something in here, and you've played around and you've done your design in Illustrator and you've given it some sort of color, then with a bitmap you can eyedropper that color. You can get exactly the same color, and you know that it's going to be perfect when it comes to printing it out. This is good for things like laser copies, because sometimes if you're bringing colors in from Photoshop, even though it seems to be exactly the same color, when it's printed out they don't always match. This is a process where you know your image is going to match the colors perfectly to whatever you've got in Illustrator. So it's a nice it's a nice technique for that reason. We're going to be using it a wee bit differently. So if I jump back in here, Command Z again, so it's gone back to the grayscale image. We'll go mode, bitmap, and this time instead of 15 I'll put in, let's try 3 and see what happens. So the frequency is lower, so now I should get thicker lines. It'll be a lot cruder. Now it is a wee bit, but it's not making much difference, so I'll go Command Z. If we want to make it really crude, the adjustment we make is now when we go bitmap, it's kind of holding its detail because of this number here, the output. So if I make this a bit lower, and let's make it a lot closer to 3 times the amount. So this time the output is going to be 300. So it's still over 3 times the input. I'll go OK. This time it's on 3. And you can see the lines are really starting to thicken up a wee bit now. This technique is really beautiful when it's kind of, you can kind of look at an image up close and it becomes an abstraction, but of course once you get further away from it, it starts to become more kind of photographically realistic. So Command Z, I'll undo that again, and we'll have a look at some of the other screening processes. So image, mode, back to bitmap, yeah, I'll leave it on 300, halftone screen, go OK, and this time instead of line we'll pick round, and we'll try it on 3, and you can see the coarseness of the screen. Really beautiful process. Now I'll get to the Photoshop screening in a minute. Command Z, image, mode, bitmap, I'll leave it on that, halftone screening, and this time I'll jump it up. So we had 25 before. And the screen becomes really fine. Now if I want to use this in another Photoshop image that I've got, and I'm just going to open up another image. Let's see what we've got under stencil. So this is just a watercolor image. I'll open it up. This image, to be able to place it on top of the other one, needs to become a color image, because this is color. It won't paste in it. I'm just going to check this with our screens, but the black and white image is a bitmap is actually going to place into our channels. I'll come back out here to layers, new, paste. Actually, it's going to paste into the color image as well. Usually with the bitmap, and maybe it's just if I'm not cutting and pasting, to be able to do anything with this image, I have to go through the process of going mode, back to grayscale, because you'll see everything switched off. Filters, all sorts of things. I can't do much to it. It's because it's a bitmap. So I actually have to change it to grayscale. It'll give you this option of a size ratio, 1:1. Go OK. And now all of this stuff switches back on. And if I want to bring it into color and start using color, I can switch it back into an RGB image. Now the thing you have to be careful of when you change it to RGB is because we changed the image and we made it three times as big. This image now is 87 megabytes. If I come and have a look at image and I go image size, it's keeping all the things. So the resolution here is 300. So if I had kept it where I put the input at 800, this would be 800. And so your images can become huge when you just convert them. But in our case, it does a good job of just cutting and pasting, and that image is going to jump in on the color one. So with the channels, we've got our alpha, and we know that we can do exactly the same thing. We can go Command I, we can load it, we can come into the layers, make a new layer, and we can choose a color, and we can fill it, and you're going to end up with this beautiful dot screened image. This is a process as well that is really, really good when you're trying to do photographic screens for screen printing, because you can control the screens to such a detail that you just get complete control over that photographic imagery when you're trying to make a screen for screen printing. This kind of process is, it's a variation of what you would have got in a newspaper. Not so much now, but when you look at the images, the dots are a lot cruder, and that's because of the paper that the newspapers are being printed on. They have to have a bigger dot, otherwise the images become incredibly muddy. So this starts to control that process a wee bit. I'll just jump back to channels, and this might be the difference here. Is if I make a new channel and I paste it, it's coming in at a certain size, and so I'm going to jump over to this one. So this was the one where we just converted it. So now if I select all of this and I copy it and I come in here and paste it. Actually, it's going to keep the same size. So let's have a look if I try and make this bigger. I'll make it a lot bigger by scaling it. Come in here and have a look. And actually it does a good job of holding the screen together. You can see it starts to get a wee bit fuzzy, but it does a good job. If you wanted to bring the image in at a much bigger size, if that screen was being interfered with, come here and I'll just see if I can revert this so it's not going to go far enough back, so I'll bring in the original. So this is right back to the start. Just going to crop it, make it a wee bit smaller. I won't go through that process of using the levels and everything. I'll just go mode, grayscale, and then I'm going back to bitmap, and this one here I'll put in 1000. Just right back down to 3. I get less control over the screen, like it's become quite a fine dot. But if I select all of this, I copy it, and now I come back into here, I make a new channel, and I paste it. Now if I go Command T, and I have to reduce right down, Command minus, you can see that the image has become so much bigger, and again it's because that resolution is so high. But this will hold together, and you can see even when I blow it up to 200%, it's a lot cleaner. So this, what we were talking about last time with resolution, how it changes this, because on the bitmap I'm making the resolution a lot higher, means that I can bring this image in and it's going to be huge. So if you're scaling something up so you can get just a small section, like in this case the eye, change the resolution so that you're always downsizing rather than scaling up, and then you won't have to worry about interpolation that we talked about last week, where things will start to get a little bit soft and a little bit fuzzy. So I'll just go to this channel, might as well bring it in while I'm here, Command I, load it up, go to our layers, I'll make a new layer, and I'll give this a different colour. I'll give it I'll give it a light blue. Option delete. So we've filled there, and now you've got a kind of a couple of screens and an image underneath. But you've got all those options now where you can go in and you can play around with darken, multiply, some of these other functions, and you can see now when you look at an image like this, actually I'll go to this one, linear burn. The combination that you start to get, like the softness of this watercolor sitting behind it, the fine screen, the overlay, there's a complexity now with this image that is really starting to look pretty lovely. And if I go to the red and I do the same thing here, let's see if we can get an interesting overlay with the watercolor. It's quite nice with the lighting and the screen. there's some interesting things that are starting to happen now. This screening process is a nice one where you want to dilute images back, still have them photographic, but not have them actually as photographs where they can conflict with something in the foreground. And I'll do another example that shows you kind of bringing it into play a wee bit more. Okay, we'll hold it there.